Well, I've got quite a little update for you in regards to the dream. And this thing just keeps going. And somebody else is now involved with some information that I have to pass along to you. And I want to get that out to you before Feast of Trumpets, the first opportunity for Feast of Trumpets this weekend on the new moon on Sunday, the 25th. Now, there's been some tremendous comments. I mean, the comments are really interesting, just from top to bottom. Now, there was one from somebody who said, hey, listen, everyone, if this guy's dream fails, we have to view him as a false prophet. Oh, come on. Are you seriously going to play the false prophet card? Don't you think that's a little inappropriate? I mean, a false prophet is just that, someone who comes out and says, I'm a prophet from God, and thus saith the Lord. I'm not doing that. I had a dream. I just had a dream. We see them all the time in the Bible, and we try to make sense of them. Many times, the person in the Bible who has a dream goes around and goes, can someone tell me what this means? It's something he has promised to send, but no one is claiming to be a prophet. So put down your bag of rocks that you want to stone me with here, and yeah, that'll be my luck. I'll have to take out on the lamb from you guys. I'll head off to Mexico, end up in some little dive bar somewhere, and the big old Mexican bartender with an eye patch will go, so what are you doing in a place like this, amigo? And I'll say, well, the subscribers to my YouTube channel want to kill me. So I'm running and trying to save my life. A dream I had didn't turn out right. And he'll nod and go, yeah. This is not a story that I've heard for the first time. And at that point, I'll look off in the corner, and there will be, under a sombrero trying to hide herself, Renee M., sipping on a virgin margarita. And, Steve Fletcher is 2 stools down from me, asleep at the bar. Mike from around the world is cleaning up the tables and swatting flies with a dish rag. I don't want to go out like that. I'm not a false prophet. It's a dream. It's a dream, and we're trying to make sense of it. We don't know for sure. I'll say this. I believe it's supernatural. I think we've blown past coincidences a long time ago. And yeah, we've got to test the spirits. But I'm going to take it and treat it with great respect, because if it is from God, I don't want to call it evil. But one of two sides are doing it. I'll admit that. And my gut instinct is, I think this may be from God, and we'll see. It will bear fruit if it is. Someone else said, the story's too complicated to follow. I don't want to make dreams the cornerstone of my faith. I hear you, but I think it's complicated to a degree. It kind of shows the intricate work that God has put into this, because it isn't the work of just one person. It's a number of people on this channel who've been able to bring a little here and a little there to it, and all of a sudden we're going, wow, that's interesting. One commenter, Keith, said it's like watching a master maestro, lead an orchestra. Yeah, that's a great analogy for God. I mean, I think, is doing just that. Let's see. Someone else said, oh yeah, get to the point. You're wasting my time, Ted. Now, I think what Ted means there is this. Hey, brother in Christ, thank you for your videos, and thank you for your dedication to bring us new information. We really appreciate it. Let me just remind you that time is short. We need to be very quick in all we do, so that will leave us more time to spread the gospel and get more people in on the ark. God bless you, brother. Maranatha. That's what I think Ted is saying. He didn't come on to be rude and boorish. No. I mean, come on. Ted knows no one's making him watch the video. Ted knows I'm doing this for stinking free, that I've never asked for a penny. No, I think Ted's doing what I first said. That's what I think. All right, but here's what I wanted to bring you, the update. And I came across this comment just last night. I mean, there are a ton of comments. I can't even read them all. So I'm scanning through right before bedtime, and I came across Kathy's. Thanks for showing it to me right before bedtime. I wish I'd seen it around noon, but it was a very interesting comment. Here it is. Kathy writes, so the flood lasted a year and 10 days, right? The flood ended on Heshvan 27. Guess what date Heshvan 27 is in 2023? Go ahead. I'll wait here. Okay, before I address that comment, and it's an interesting one, I want you to see something that is clear and evident, that all the participants in this, now including Kathy, whether it was KLB, who was the first to say, hey, did you know that the day the flood started, the 17th day of the second month, Heshvan 17, falls on 11/11? She said in a follow-up comment that she knew that and she felt urged in her spirit to tell me. Again, it's all pointing to the flood. Lori's original dream about the Titans and the Giants. It wasn't about a football game. It was about the Giants and the Titans, pointing to the Nephilim. Again, that's pointing to Genesis 6, pre-flood, the reason for the flood. In the dream I had, I'm given 2 verses out of Genesis. They are cause and effect verses. Chapter 6, verse 12, we see that God says the earth is corrupt. That's the cause. The effect is Genesis 7:11. Because of that, the flood came. And the flood this year, the anniversary of the start of the flood, is on November 11th, 11/11, the exact name of this channel, and numbers that people all over the world have been seeing for years. And now Kathy comes along and she says, so the end of the flood, and by the way, embedded in the flood is the 11th day, 11th month. You have to count it down. You have to see, it talks about then Moses or Noah waited 40 days and then he's 7 days. At one point, it hits on, when he sends out the raven, it hits on the 11th day of the 11th month. That's inside the story of the flood. So Kathy comes along and she says, so the flood lasts 1 year and 10 days. It starts on Heshvan 17. Noah got out and the earth was dry on Heshvan 27 the following year, 1 year and 10 days. Kathy says, guess what day that is next year? The anniversary of the end date of the flood, Heshvan 27, next year is, of course, and you probably already guessed, 11/11. So wait a minute. The anniversary of the flood's beginning this year is on 11/11, and the anniversary of the end of the flood 1 year from now is also on 11/11. To give you an idea of how rare that is, you have to go back 114 years before that happens again. It happened in 1908, where on 1908, the anniversary of the flood's beginning was on 11/11, and the following year, 1909, the anniversary of the end date of the flood was on 11/11. It has not happened in 114 years. He's telling us something. And by the way, when you look at 1908, 11/11 to start the flood, 1909 ends the flood on 11/11. During that year, the Tunguska explosion of June 30th, 1908, that was the day in Siberia where the largest asteroid to ever hit the Earth in recorded history took place. And it was devastating. They even refer to super events on whether or not they are at a Tunguska level or not. Because if that asteroid had been just a little bigger, we'd be looking at an extinction level event. It was an enormous event. And it happened during that year where the bookends were November 11th, start the flood, the anniversary of, and November 11th, the next year, to end the anniversary of the flood. And this asteroid strikes right in the middle of it. Rather interesting, don't you think? So again, everything that we're seeing, and as people come forward, it all ends up pointing to the flood with an emphasis on 11/11, the very name of this channel. He's telling us something. And everybody wants to know, well, what is he telling us? Are you saying the rapture is going to happen on November 11th? Okay, look, number one, my analysis of what's going on here is no better than anybody else's, okay? It is no better, maybe worse than a lot of other people's analysis. So I don't know. And that's true of a lot of times when someone has the dream. They want to know, what does it mean? What does it mean? All I know is he is doing everything he can to get our attention right now. Now, you do whatever you want with it. Here's what I'm going to do with it. No, I am not saying the rapture happens on November 11th. Many people in the comment section have pointed out Noah and his family were in the ark before the 17th of Heshvan. They were already there 7 days before that. They got in the ark before the flood began. I think that's a clear indication of what we see Jesus telling the church of Philadelphia, I will keep you from the hour of testing that's about to come on the whole world. I think he's saying the hour of testing is about to begin. Where we will be kept from it, let's wait and see. It could very well be this weekend on the Feast of Trumpets, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. I'm not saying that I'm saying the rapture could happen at any time. He has said clearly, he is going to keep a group of Christians from the hour of testing that's coming on the whole earth to test them who dwell on the earth. At the Olivet Discourse, he says, I pray always, watch and pray always that you're worthy to escape all these things. There's a way of escaping all of these things. And 11:11 this year may just be pointing to, just as there was a beginning of the flood, there's about to be a beginning of end time events. Now, the beginning of end time events is easy to see once you know what the 3 event lines are. Let me put them up. You've seen me do this over and over, but it bears repeating, especially now. When John is taken into the throne room of heaven, court is about to begin. A judgment is about to take place. 3 witnesses are about to come forward and tell their story. Each story ends at the day of the Lord, and then it starts over again. That's why it's such an abrupt transition each time it does it. The line where we learn about what is God going to do in end times starts at the beginning of chapter 8 of Revelation, and it ends at the end of chapter 11 with the day of the Lord. Right before it ends with the day of the Lord, an angel comes down and he says, when that 7th trumpet blows, that's it. It's over. And then we see the day of the Lord take place from a heavenly perspective. But going back to the start, there's silence in heaven. And I've said all along, that's where I believe we are right now. He is seemingly sending us a message that it's not going to be silent much longer. Just as the flood had a surprise and a begin date for the world, it was a surprise, the end time events are about to begin. It begins with what I've called the event. This is what ends the silence in heaven. And as soon as it ends, as soon as the event takes place, the angels who are going to blow the 7 trumpets, which represents the tribulation, pick those trumpets up because now they know it's time to start blowing them. This is the event that breaks the silence. This is the beginning. This is the announcement. It has begun. And it comes with an earthquake. Now, if you're new to this channel, and a lot of people have come through the last couple of days because they're interested in this, and they don't know what this channel is all about, I'm not about to go into an explanation here because I've given ample explanations about it. If you're interested, seek it out. But there are 3 earthquakes in the book of Revelation. So that leaves us with this first earthquake, which would be a perfect place for it at Feast of Trumpets. And I believe this is the escape. Will it happen on November 11th? Right now, I'm looking for it to happen on Feast of Trumpets. But if we blow past Feast of Trumpets this year, we'll recalibrate. But it's coming soon. He's going out of his way. He's bringing all kinds of people, throwing in little tidbits so that we get this story. He is telling us. He is using 11:11 on the 11:11 channel to tell you something is up. And then he is also pointing at the events of the flood to tell us something very similar is about to happen, which we knew. And he's telling us it is happening. Unfortunately, the church is asleep at the wheel. It is a colossal fail on their part. Let me show you one other comment. Wow, I'm a baby Christian saved by his grace and mercy in May of 2020. I've been walking with Christ and soaking up his word every day since that amazing moment. I wasn't prepared to see or feel so much evil after the scales were removed, but it's intense. It's shocking that everyone is just going about their lives completely unaware, including my sweet husband and 2 boys. Please pray for their salvation. How is it possible that a brand new Christian gets it like Kathy? And yet, pastors with seminary degrees are going about business as usual in their churches. Now, we are the church, the capital C, but we go to churches, or a lot of us do, and there's a leader there. There's the pastor of the church, and those pastors, by and large, are completely out of step with what's going on in the world, or their messages would be completely different. I mean, if you had a guy who had been in a coma for 10 years, Ted, I'm trying. If you had a guy who'd been in a coma for 10 years, a Christian, comes out of the coma yesterday, and while they're trying to find family and friends to come to the hospital and all that, he says, I just want a radio so I can hear Christian teaching. I want to catch up. So he's listening to Christian teaching day and night, and then a friend comes to visit, a Christian friend comes to visit, checks on him, and asks him how he's doing. He said, well, I'm doing okay now. I'm doing okay. Everything looks good, but I'm a little disappointed that we aren't any closer to end times. And his Christian friend who is awake says, well, what do you mean? Well, I'm listening to all of my favorite pastors, and they're not mentioning anything, so we must not be any closer. These are the same kinds of sermons I heard 10 years ago before the coma. Yeah, that's exactly right. And here's Jesus screaming to us at the beginning and end of the book of Revelation, stay awake, behold, I'm coming. I'd like to go up to every single pastor in this country who is not awake and urgent about the times and seasons that we live in, and ask him, what do you got prepared here for your sermon today? Oh, I'm doing a thing on Nehemiah. He found the book of the law, and we're going to be going over that. Okay, if an angel, right before you went out for your first sermon, an angel came into your office and said, I am charging with you to tell your people that the Lord is coming soon. Would that change your sermon for that day? Well, of course it would. If an angel came and told me to tell the people that the Lord is coming soon, that's what I'd tell them. And I go, well, why aren't you? Because an angel hasn't come and told me that. Yes, he has. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify of these things for the churches. That's you. But they won't see it. They can't sense it. It's unbelievable. So we have to gin each other up, encourage one another. Now is the time to follow one of his last commandments, his commandment. My commandment is for you to love one another as I loved you. Ted, did you hear that? This is the time for all of us to show camaraderie. We're not all going to believe the same thing about the dream. We're not all going to believe the same thing about the rapture, but this is the time for us to love one another, to be patient with one another, to encourage one another. Folks, he is pointing to something big that is about to happen. We wait and we watch with anticipation. Next up, Feast of Trumpets. Happy Feast of Trumpets. God bless each and every one of you.